What is going on, guys? So guess what I did this weekend? Well, number one, on Saturday I threw a race with my three bros running company, and it was a success. But I'll probably talk about that on Goku Runner Talks Tuesday over there. But with that race, I actually borrowed a bunch of gear from another race director over in Houston, and he let me borrow signage, which really helped during the race. And he also let me borrow cones, and these cones were about 120 cones, and it was helpful for our course because we did get barricades from the city, but we also wanted some cones just to separate the runners at certain points of the race, and I used those cones at my race. But on the race day of my race in the morning, Ron texted me and he was like, "You know those cones you let me borrow? I said I would need them pretty quickly after the race, and I thought it was going to be about a week or two." And he probably thought it was going to be about a week or two also. He told me he needed them that day. So after the race, after the long day, after no sleep, I actually headed over down to LaPorte and drove over there to return the cones, return the signage to him. And he also said if I wanted to run his race that I could do it. And I asked him, "What's the distance to your race?" And he told me it was a sprint triathlon, a duathlon, and an Olympic triathlon. And I was like, you know what? I can't swim very well. I probably won't do this race. But, the more that I thought about it, and you guys know how I like to do things last minute, I was like, let's go ahead and do it. And I didn't want to do the duathlon. I wanted to challenge myself and do the sprint triathlon. The sprint triathlon, for those that do not know, is a 500-meter swim, which didn't seem that long in my head. It was like one loop around the track and then 100 meters more. And then there's a 12.5-mile bike, and finally ending with a 5K run. So I was like, that's kind of doable, even though I haven't been on my road bike in probably 6 years or more, and I haven't open water swam for the distance in who knows when. And I know the last triathlon that I did was not a sprint. I have never done a sprint triathlon, so this was going to be my longest swim ever. And yeah, I was like, let's go for it. And I don't have any footage of this race just because triathlons do have a USATF kind of rules, and I wasn't sure if I could bring my GoPro. If I did bring it, I would be disqualified. And I did text Ron the day of the race to see if I could bring my GoPro, and of course he was busy, and I kind of knew that. And he texted me after the race that it would have been fine. So I could have GoPro'd, but I did not. I'm just going to tell you how my first sprint triathlon went, basically with no training. So we get out there the day of the race. I'm nervous. Everything's last minute. I just literally found my shoes the day of the race. I had my road bike that was flat. I haven't even changed the tires. I wasn't even sure if the tires would last. So when I got to the race, I asked somebody in the parking lot if I could use their pump to pump up my tires. And luckily the tires didn't pop. I borrowed a last minute helmet from my friend because I stayed over at Drew's house the day before. And he was like, "Do you need a helmet for this race?" And I was like, "Oh, I probably do need a helmet." So I got the helmet. He also had some goggles I borrowed. And once I got everything, I walked over to the race with Tony, and we went over and did the race. And also Tony was a last minute decision to do it too, because I got this free race and I was like, "Tony, if you do this race with me, I'm gonna pay for half your entry and you could come do the race." So Tony did it. He hasn't done a race since 2014, but he's an Ironman, so he'll be fine. And I get out there and it's just this sea of triathletes looking into the open water, and I'm like, holy crap, this is a long distance. 500 meters is going to be tough. And I signed up as a Clydesdale, so I went a little bit earlier than other people, and we had to keep a 4-minute pace for 100 meters in order to not DQ the swim part. The whistle went off. They told us to go jump in the water, and of course I'm like, I'm gonna go really slow. And I kind of knew that even at my slowest, I'll still not be going slow enough. And so when I started swimming, I started doing the freestyle, trying to remember how to turn my head and breathe, blow out the water in the water, do that. But that lasted like 20 seconds literally. And then after that, I was just surviving out there. And after the first buoy, I looked up and I was like, this is going to be a long swim. I was already gulping down some water. I could see that the lifeguards were kind of eyeing me as well. So I made the turn after the first buoy, and I saw a kayak, and I was like, can I grab onto you just to rest? Because I'm really out of breath at this point. I'm not a great freestyle swimmer. I can doggy paddle, but man, you get tired real quick. So I got the kayak, grabbed onto it, and I was like, I'm gonna hold on to you for about 40 seconds. So that's what I did. After that, I went back to swimming again, and you get tired real quick, man. You get tired real quick after you do some freestyle swimming, especially if you don't know how to freestyle swim. So I got the kayak again, grabbed onto him. At this point, I'm literally halfway in the race, and I know I have another halfway to go. And I look at my kayak guy and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I think I'm gonna call it. And he was like, man, you're right there. The other buoy is right there. But in my head, I'm thinking that buoy is still far, far away. But with his motivation, I was like, all right, let me swim to the buoy and let me see if I can make it. And I did my doggy paddle. I did my freestyle swim. I did, every type of swim motion I could do. I backstroked. And I made it to that other buoy, and at this point I was tired again because, again, I'm moving everything. My legs are moving, my arms are moving. This is a new movement that I haven't done in many years. So I grab onto another canoe or kayak or stand-up paddleboard and hold on there for another 45 seconds to a minute. And then I keep going again. And then at this point, they're like, you have to stay with him, make sure he doesn't drown, right? So there's a guy following me through my whole swim, and at this point basically everybody's out of the water. There's just me and a few other people on the swim, and the guy is following me to the end. And I swim some more, grab onto the kayak, swim some more, grab onto the kayak, and finally I'm just gonna breaststroke. So I start breaststroking to the end where I can finally put my feet on solid ground. And every time I come up, the kayak guy is like, you got this, come back up, you got this, come back up, you're doing great. He was an awesome volunteer. That was the guy that told me that I could make it, that I shouldn't quit, and I finished the swim. And it was a glorious feeling knowing that I don't have to go through the swim again and that I survived that swim, because I do not know how to swim out in open water that well, and I made it. So after the open water swim, I high-fived the dude next to me because he was struggling as well, and I went to transition 1. I put on my bike shoes, put on everything, and I went out on my 12.5 mile bike ride. It went pretty good. The only problem during the bike ride was that I had an old bike. My bike had not been serviced in a long time. I literally just pulled it out of the garage where it had been sitting and put it on my truck. Thing with my bike, and I remembered during the bike ride that it did not go into the higher gear. So I was stuck going into the lower gears, and I couldn't really switch my back gears. See, this is how bad I am in biking or cycling, that I don't know what the front low gear, high gear is, but I could only go into 2 or 3 gears where it made cycling easier. So I wasn't able to use all of my gears on my bike, but luckily for us, we live in flat lands of Southeast Texas, so there wasn't many hills. There was one overpass that we had to go up, which was a little bit of a struggle, but I was able to do that. I got about 14.7 miles per hour average for my bike ride for 12 miles. And then I made it back into transition 2, changed into my running shoes. And at this point, I'm pretty spent. I probably should have brought some hydration, some kind of Gatorade with me. I didn't have any, but they did have some on the course. So I pretty much did a walk run to finish off my 5K, got into the finish line, did a sprint, of course, and then I finished. It was a great feeling to know that I swam, biked, and run my first sprint triathlon pretty much with no training. I was under-trained already for my run, and I had no training for my swim or my bike, but I still made it. You could do a lot of things if you put your mind to it. Definitely want to make sure you're safe, so know your limits, but push yourself to the max when you can. So that's my story. I finished my sprint triathlon. I wasn't able to get a medal. I got an old medal, so I don't want to show the medal that I got. The medal is going to be shipped to me. Other people got this cool lei medal. It was like flowers and everything. I wasn't able to get that. But man, it was an experience. Sprint triathlon. I definitely need to know how to swim before I go out and do anything more than that, because it got pretty real out there on the swim, but I made it. So yeah, that's my story. Finished in just under 2 hours, 1 hour and like 56 minutes. Not bad. I finished. It doesn't matter what I did, I got it done. Alright guys, hope you guys enjoyed this little story of my sprint triathlon. And if you guys did, leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.